In the sprawling city of Westbridge, a mosaic of neon lights, late-night street vendors, and crowded sidewalks, lived a woman named Lena Zhao, 31 years old, sharp-minded, observant, and deeply private. Her life was a carefully balanced arrangement of discipline and creativity. She worked in e-commerce during the day and crafted digital marketing campaigns at night. To her friends, she was resourceful, witty, and pragmatic. To herself, she was simply a person trying to navigate adulthood with dignity and caution. Yet despite the stability she had built, loneliness sometimes crept in like an unwelcome guest. After much hesitation, she finally allowed her friend to convince her to download a dating app known for its casual atmosphere. A space where hundreds of thousands swiped through faces like flipping through a never-ending magazine of strangers. She promised herself she would be selective, respectful, guarded. But then she matched with a man named Evan Hall. He was 28, with a profile picture that looked uncommonly polished. Confident smile, hair too precisely styled, eyes a little too aware of the camera. His bio was vague. Dance instructor, social media creator, here to connect. Nothing alarming, nothing revealing. Lena wasn't particularly impressed. But he messaged her first, and his words carried a tone of harmless friendliness. Not flirty, not demanding, just curious. After a slow exchange of messages, he suggested meeting at a bubble tea cafe downtown. Lena hesitated. First meetings made her anxious, but eventually agreed. It was a public place. Late afternoon. Plenty of witnesses. She felt safe enough. If only she had known. The day of the date arrived with the muted chill of early autumn. Lena wore a soft beige sweater, dark jeans, and white sneakers. Her hair was tied neatly at the back, practical and unfussy. She wasn't trying to impress anyone, just hoping for a peaceful conversation. She saw Evan before he saw her. He was leaning against the hood of a small gray car, wearing a red windbreaker and black pants. His phone angled upward in his hand. He seemed to be talking to it, talking and laughing occasionally, not at something she could see, but at the glowing rectangle held a foot away from his face. Her instincts whispered, but she approached anyway. "Hi, Evan," she said. He lowered the phone, flashed a smile that seemed rehearsed, and waved. Up close, Lena sensed an almost performative energy radiating from him. "Hey, finally. Good to meet you." He didn't mention the phone, didn't apologize for whatever he had been doing. He just gestured toward the car. "I was about to grab a drink. Want to go together?" The cafe was only half a block away. Walking would have taken 30 seconds, but Evan insisted they drive. Lena told herself not to judge too quickly. Maybe he was trying to be polite. Maybe he didn't realize the oddness. She climbed into the passenger seat, and that's when she saw it. His phone was mounted on the dashboard, camera facing her, and a bright red dot blinked in the corner of the screen. She froze. "Are you recording?" He didn't even flinch. "Oh, it's just my live stream. Don't worry. They can only see my side." Lena leaned forward. The chat stream rolled quickly on the screen. "Who's the girl? Finally some content. Ask her something." Her stomach nodded. "You're live streaming this date?" "Yeah," he said casually, as if this were common practice. "It's kind of what I do. People donate if they like the vibe." He pulled out of the parking spot. Lena turned toward him sharply. "I don't consent to being filmed." "It's fine," he said. "They can't see your whole face. That's not the point. Turn it off." "But I've already started. They're expecting." "Turn off." Slowly, reluctantly, he ended the stream. The red light disappeared, but her discomfort did not. Instead of heading toward the cafe, Evan began driving in the opposite direction. "Where are we going?" Lena asked, her voice strained. "Oh, I just thought we'd take a quick drive. The sunset looks nice today." "No," Lena said. "I agreed to meet at the cafe. Please turn around." "We will," he said lightly. "Just thought we'd talk a little first." Her pulse quickened. Something was wrong. She reached for the door handle, but the lock clicked down. Automatically. Her breath stopped. "Did you lock the doors?" "It's automatic," he replied. Relax. He kept talking about his online audience, his nightly streaming routine, how people love watching real-life dates because it feels honest. His words blurred together, a relentless monologue, as Lena's anxiety rose like water filling a room. "I'd like to get out," she said firmly. "We're driving. I can't just stop anywhere." "Yes, you can. What's the big deal? I'm not dangerous." But she didn't feel safe. Not even remotely. Her hand hovered near her phone. Should she call someone? Would it escalate things? She looked outside. Traffic lights. Pedestrians. They were still in a busy part of town. This was her chance. "Pull over," she said louder. "Now." Something in her tone made him finally sigh and turn the wheel toward the curb. But before the car fully stopped, he lifted his phone again, streaming again. "Guys, she's freaking out," he said into the camera. "I don't know what's going on." Lena's heart slammed in her chest. "Turn it off," she shouted. People on the sidewalk turned to look. A few stopped walking. He ended the stream abruptly, annoyed now. "You're really making this dramatic." Lena unlocked the door manually and stepped out quickly, her legs trembling. She felt humiliated, frightened, violated. Filmed without consent, trapped in a moving car, her discomfort treated as entertainment. She didn't even look back as she walked toward the nearest open shop, seeking safety in the presence of others. That night, Lena couldn't sleep. Her thoughts spun endlessly. How many people saw her face? Did someone screenshot her? Clip her reaction? Trace her identity? Her fear turned into resolve. She gathered screenshots from his streams, evidence of his behavior, and filed a complaint with the platform. She also contacted a small local legal service that specialized in digital privacy issues. She didn't want revenge. She wanted accountability and protection. Weeks later, both parties found themselves in a small municipal courtroom, a place far less glamorous than television courtrooms but far more personal. The judge was a seasoned woman in her 60s, stern but perceptive. Lena presented her side calmly. The unwanted filming, the locked doors, the invasive comments from viewers, the refusal to stop streaming when asked. Evan tried to defend himself. "It's just content. I wasn't hurting her. That's how I make money." The judge's expression hardened. "So your income depends on live streaming strangers without consent?" "It's not like that," he muttered. "You locked the doors of the car. It was automatic. You kept filming after she said stop." He shifted uncomfortably. "I mean, my audience." "Your audience does not supersede someone's autonomy," the judge snapped. "Your desire for attention does not give you permission to trap someone in your vehicle or expose their image to the internet without consent." Evan's shoulders slumped. The judge ordered him to remove all footage containing Lena, banned him from featuring dates in live streams without written consent, and instructed him to take a digital ethics course offered by the city. Lena exhaled, relief flooding her system like warm water. Justice wasn't always loud or dramatic. Sometimes it was simply a boundary drawn firmly and fairly. Over the next months, Lena found herself unexpectedly more confident. The ordeal, though frightening, taught her something she never expected. She could defend herself. She could draw boundaries, speak up, and take action. She deleted the dating app. She joined a hiking group instead, real people, real sunlight, real conversations. And one crisp Sunday morning, while climbing a trail overlooking Westbridge, she met someone kind, someone quiet, someone who didn't even own social media accounts. She laughed at the contrast. Life had a strange sense of humor. And for the first time in a long time, Lena felt free, truly free. In the days following the courtroom decision, Lena felt a quiet shift within herself. It wasn't dramatic, not a cinematic triumph, but a subtle reclaiming of her own steadiness. The city seemed softer, as if the streets acknowledged her resilience. The neon signs still hummed, the trains still screeched against metal rails, but she no longer felt swallowed by the chaos. She started walking home from work instead of taking rideshares. She discovered local bakeries that smelled of warm pastries at dusk. She learned the rhythm of her neighborhood, the florist who opened early, the street violinist who played melancholic tunes on Thursdays, the couple who always argued affectionately in front of their laundromat. Life had texture again, richness. The unsettling memory of Evan and that claustrophobic car ride didn't vanish, of course. But it shrank, like a shadow losing power under sunlight. What she didn't know was that the incident had created ripples far beyond her own routine. For Evan Hall, life immediately after the hearing was a jolt he hadn't expected. His subscribers dropped. His donation income plummeted overnight. Several viewers, even those who had encouraged his reckless streaming habits, criticized him for crossing the line. His inbox filled with a mixture of jokes, ridicule, and concern. "Dude, you messed up. That's not content, that's creepy. Bro, you need therapy, not streaming." He tried to brush it off at first. Tried to spin a narrative. It was all a misunderstanding. She overreacted. People can't take a joke. But deep down, late at night, in the quiet of his dimly lit basement room, he reread the judgment and felt something unfamiliar: shame. Not public shame, private shame, the kind that gnaws at the edges of denial. He sat in front of his streaming setup multiple times over the following week, staring at the dual monitors, the LED lights framing his desk, the microphone suspended above like a judgmental eye. But every time he hovered over the button that would take him live, he hesitated. For the first time since he'd started his career, he wondered what he was actually doing. Was his life really just broadcasting strangers? Was he anything outside the screen? The question haunted him. Meanwhile, Lena embraced a new chapter. The hiking group she joined wasn't just exercise, it was a refuge. The trail wound through forested hills just outside Westbridge, offering a world untouched by the city's noise. And it was there, on a crisp morning, that she crossed paths with someone she never expected. His name was Kalen Ortiz. He wasn't flashy. He wasn't overly charming. He wasn't performing anything for anyone. He simply existed with a kind of grounded presence that felt safe from the moment he spoke. They walked near each other by coincidence at first, both slower than the most athletic hikers, both appreciating the scenery. "You come here often?" he asked awkwardly, immediately wincing at the cliché. Lena laughed, and the tension evaporated. They talked about hiking trails and local cafes, and books that were better than their movie adaptations. Kalen worked at a small community center teaching music to kids. He wasn't online. He didn't have social media, not even one account. Startled her. "You're serious?" she asked. He nodded. "I tried it once. Didn't like the noise. I prefer actual people." It was the first time someone's lack of internet presence felt like a breath of fresh air instead of an inconvenience. But while Lena's life slowly brightened, Evan's continued to dim, until one evening, he opened his email and found a single message that made his stomach twist. It was from a streaming platform administrator. "Mandatory compliance check. Due to repeated warnings, you are required to complete the digital ethics certification before your account can be reinstated." This wasn't optional anymore. "No stream. No donations." No audience until he finished the course. He groaned, but he clicked the link. The course was nothing like he expected. It wasn't legal jargon or boring lectures. It was a series of videos featuring people who had been harmed by invasive recording. Stories eerily similar to what Lena had experienced. A woman who had been filmed at a gas station without consent. A teenager who had been live-streamed crying during a panic attack. A man whose date secretly posted his entire dinner conversation for entertainment. As Evan listened, something inside him cracked open. For the first time, he began to see the world outside his perspective. The world of the filmed. The world of the exploited. The world of those who didn't ask to be content. He sat back in his chair, the screen reflecting in his eyes, and whispered to himself, "I did that, didn't I?" Admitting it felt like swallowing glass. Weeks passed. Lena continued her hikes, sometimes with Kalen, sometimes alone, rediscovering her independence and joy. She no longer replayed the night of the livestream date in her mind. Felt distant, like a chapter already closed. But fate has strange ways of placing unfinished threads back into one's path. Because one morning, As Lena was leaving a small cafe, she nearly bumped into a figure at the door. A familiar figure. Evan. He froze. She froze. For a second, neither knew what to say. He looked different, less polished, less performative. Tired, even. Lena, he said softly. I didn't expect to see you. She held her breath, unsure if she wanted this conversation at all. But he didn't smirk, didn't make excuses, didn't joke. I came to apologize, he said, voice trembling slightly. For real. No camera. No audience. No performance. Lena didn't speak yet, but she didn't walk away either. He continued. You were right. I invaded your privacy. I disrespected your boundaries. I didn't treat you like a person, just as something to broadcast. I watched that course. I watched everything, and it made me realize how messed up it was. A silence settled between them. Lena still kept her guard up, but she listened. I'm not asking for forgiveness, he said. I just didn't want to go the rest of my life pretending like I wasn't wrong. Lena's expression softened slightly, not out of affection, but out of a quiet recognition of accountability. Thank you, she said simply. He nodded. And for the first time in his life, Evan walked away without looking back at a camera. After the unexpected encounter outside the cafe, Lena walked home with a complex swirl of emotions. Relief, mostly relief that the confrontation was finally over, relief that he hadn't tried to excuse himself, relief that he had taken responsibility instead of turning everything into performance. But there was something else too. A surprising, unexpectedly human sense of closure. She hadn't forgiven him. She didn't plan to, but she didn't need to carry the weight anymore. The world suddenly felt quieter, and beautifully, wonderfully normal. Over the next few weeks, Lena found herself spending more time with Kaylin, the soft-spoken music teacher from her hiking group. Their connection wasn't dramatic or cinematic. It grew in gentle increments, small, patient, sincere. They met at parks, at little hole-in-the-wall cafes, at bookstores that smelled of dust and paper, at the community center where Kaylin taught music to kids who couldn't afford private lessons. One afternoon, she visited his class for the first time. The children adored him. Not because he was cool or entertaining, but because he listened to them with genuine interest. He knelt to their eye level, celebrated their tiny achievements, and laughed when their chaotic attempts at rhythm filled the room like a swarm of out-of-tune bees. Lena watched him, her heart warming with a quiet admiration. When the class ended, he approached her with a shy smile. So, that was my world, he said. Not very glamorous. Lena shook her head. No. It's real. It's honest. I like it. He looked at her for a moment too long, but in a gentle way, not intrusive, not forceful. And something between them shifted. But while Lena's life was expanding, Evan's was slowly unraveling further. The more he reflected, the more he realized how hollow his years of live streaming had been. His career had never been about connection, only attention. Even his subscribers weren't friends. They were spectators. He began avoiding the basement, avoiding the camera, avoiding the identity he had convinced himself was success. One night, while scrolling aimlessly through his old content, he noticed something that sent a chill through him. Comments under one of his previous streams that had nothing to do with Lena. Comments he had ignored at the time. Dude, the girl looks uncomfortable. Stop filming her without asking. Man, this doesn't feel right. There had been warnings. He had simply chosen not to see them. He leaned back in his chair, heart heavy. Who had he been? One Saturday morning, Lena received a message from Kaylin. There's a small music showcase tonight. Not a big event, just my students and some local performers. Would you like to come? She hesitated only for a second. Of course, she replied. When she arrived that evening, the community center was decorated with hand-drawn posters and paper lanterns. The atmosphere buzzed with excitement. Kids practicing backstage, parents nervously adjusting outfits, volunteers arranging chairs. Kaylin smiled when he saw her. You came. Wouldn't miss it. As the performances began, Lena felt something warm settle inside her. The music wasn't perfect. The violin screeched occasionally. The piano missed notes. The drums lost rhythm. But everything felt alive. Unfiltered. Human. At the end, Kalen played a quiet guitar piece he had written himself. The melody was gentle, almost fragile, like a confession whispered through strings. And he kept looking at Lena as he played. Her cheeks warmed. The world suddenly felt full of possibility. But life has a way of weaving loose threads into unexpected knots. A few days after the music showcase, as Lena walked toward the community center for another volunteer day, she passed a street corner and heard a familiar voice. Soft.
Tentative.
Uncertain. She turned. It was Evan. He was standing near a bench, holding a paper envelope, shifting awkwardly like someone unsure whether to leave or speak. He wasn't live streaming. The phone in his pocket didn't even glow. Their eyes met. He swallowed hard. "I'm not here to bother you," he said quickly. I have something I want to give you, and then I'll go." Lena didn't move closer, but she didn't walk away either. "What is it?" she asked cautiously. He held out the envelope. "It's a letter. I wrote it because I didn't want to say everything out loud. I'm not good at that. You don't have to read it now, or ever. But I wanted you to have it." She hesitated, then gently took the envelope. "Thank you," she said simply. He nodded once, almost with relief, and walked away. Not filming, not performing, just walking quietly, almost thoughtfully, into the crowd. That night, Lena sat by her window, the city lights flickering against the glass. She opened the envelope. The letter was handwritten, messy, uneven, honest. "Lena, I don't expect forgiveness. I don't deserve it. I just want you to know that you changed something in me. Your fear that night, the look in your eyes, I didn't understand it then. That's the worst part. I thought it was nothing, just content. But now I know it was more than fear. It was your trust in the world cracking because of me.
I'm sorry.
I've enrolled in a real program, not just the mandatory ethics course. I'm seeing someone who helps me understand why I treated people like props. Asterisk, I hope your life is nothing like mine used to be. I hope it's full of real moments, not screens. And I hope someone treats you the way I should have treated you from the start. Asterisk. Thank you for waking me up, Evan." Lena read it twice, then folded it gently and placed it in her drawer. Not because she forgave him, but because she recognized something rare. Growth, accountability, change. And that, in its own way, was enough. Winter settled over Westbridge with a quiet serenity, softening the edges of the city. Streetlights glowed like warm lanterns in the early dusk, and the first snow dusted the rooftops and bus stations. Lena wrapped herself in a wool coat and walked to the community center where she had begun volunteering every Tuesday. Life had changed in ways she couldn't have predicted. She wasn't just rediscovering herself. She was rebuilding her world with a sense of intention, safety, warmth, purpose. She found comfort in the rustle of sheet music at the community center, the laughter of children learning their first clumsy chords, and the calm presence of Kalen, who always greeted her with a soft, genuine smile that seemed to say, "You're safe here." And for the first time in many years, she believed it. Kalen and Lena's bond grew slowly, like the roots of a tree weaving deeper into the soil. They didn't rush anything. They didn't force anything. Their connection formed in the quiet moments, helping a child tune a guitar, discussing novels in the corner of a bookstore, sharing warm soup on cold evenings, walking through the park as autumn faded into winter. One evening, after a small winter recital at the community center, Kalen walked Lena home. Snow fell lightly around them, turning the street into a white dreamscape. The city felt hushed, peaceful. He paused under a street lamp, hands tucked into the pockets of his coat. "Lena," he said gently, "I've been meaning to ask, how are you really doing? After everything that happened?" She took a breath, watching her own exhale turn to mist. "I'm healing," she said softly, "and I feel stronger, more myself than before." Kalen smiled, the kind of smile that held no judgment, no pressure, only admiration. "I'm glad," he said. "Truly." And for a moment, that simple exchange felt like a promise of something deeper. Meanwhile, miles away, Evan Hall sat at his desk, the same desk where he had once chased strangers' reactions and audience approval. But the room looked different now. The LED lights were gone. The microphone arm had been detached. The streaming monitors were dark. He didn't stream anymore. He had gotten a part-time job at a dance studio, teaching basics to teenagers who treated him with a mix of amusement and genuine curiosity. At first, humbling himself was painful, but over time it became freeing. Every paycheck felt more real than 1,000 donations ever had. And every conversation he had in person taught him something he had forgotten. People weren't content. People were human. After giving Lena the handwritten letter, he felt as if a weight had been lifted. He didn't expect a response. Didn't expect anything, really. But the act of acknowledging his failure had opened a doorway, not with Lena, but within himself. It marked the beginning of his transformation. He even joined a therapy group for individuals struggling with digital dependency and validation addiction. It wasn't easy. He had to confront uncomfortable truths about how much of his life had been a performance, how little of his identity had been real. But he showed up, week after week, word by word, step by step, and slowly, quietly, he became a better version of himself. Months passed. Lena never planned to respond to Evan's letter. She didn't hate him. She simply didn't want to reopen a chapter she worked so hard to close. His apology had been genuine, and she honored that by keeping the letter safe rather than throwing it away. But she didn't know him more. Some stories simply end where they must. She stored the envelope in a drawer, a reminder not of trauma, but of growth. As spring approached, warmth returned to Westbridge. Flowers blossomed near cracked sidewalks, cafes reopened outdoor seating, and the community center merged its music program with a youth art initiative. Lena found herself more involved than ever. One breezy afternoon, after a volunteer meeting, Kaylin approached her with a hesitant look. "Can I walk you home?" he asked. Her heart fluttered, still subtle, but no longer afraid. Of course. They walked side by side underneath budding cherry trees. The air carried scents of fresh soil and new beginnings. Halfway down the street, Kaylin paused. "I don't want to rush you," he began, "but I'd like to ask, would you ever want to go out with me? On a real date, I mean. No expectations. No pressure." Lena felt the world around her slow, the blossoms drifting like tiny pink snowflakes. She had spent so long healing, rebuilding. Was she ready? Her heart answered before her mind did. "Yes," she said, her voice warm. "I would." Kaylin's smile, gentle, relieved, heartfelt, warmed her more than the spring sun. "Then how about tomorrow evening?" he suggested. "I know a quiet place. Small cafe, live acoustic music. No cameras," he added playfully. Lena laughed, the sound light and genuine. "I'd like that." Their first date was peaceful, genuine, untouched by spectacle. They talked for hours, about childhood, dreams, fears, and the odd twists life had thrown at them. There were no bright screens. No flashing notifications. No audience. Just two people finally finding something real. In the weeks that followed, their bond deepened. Slowly, naturally, beautifully, and somewhere in another corner of the city, Evan continued rebuilding his life, distant from Lena's world, but no longer a threat to it. His growth became its own quiet redemption, one he pursued without expecting applause. Lena sometimes thought about that, about how lives intersect for reasons we cannot predict, about how pain can lead to strength, about how endings can create beginnings. Her journey had been difficult, frightening, disorienting, but she had emerged wiser, braver, and more herself than ever. And with each passing day, she stepped further into a future defined not by fear, not by the shadow of a live stream, but by the quiet, steady light of connection and trust. One spring evening, Lena sat beside Kaylin on a park bench. The sky was painted in gold and lavender. Children chased bubbles nearby, and the air smelled faintly of blooming flowers. She leaned her head against Kaylin's shoulder. Softly, he took her hand.
No cameras.
No audience. No performance. Just life, beautifully, imperfectly, authentically lived. And Lena smiled, knowing the last chapter of her old story had truly closed, opening the door to something peaceful, honest, and new. The end.